Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Laurin Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
All right, and we are back with Coach Sam.
Hi.
And today's podcast is going to be covering how to navigate seasons of life. Okay, life, not love. Apparently there's a song from the musical Rent that Sam started singing to me before we started recording.
Everyone on this podcast is going to think I'm a Broadway nerd.
Dude,
from the Hamilton.
I mean, are you not?
Well, there are 3 Broadway hats behind me.
Yeah, I feel like you're making your case. So
Okay, fine.
Sam clearly likes Broadway, which is all good. We've already decided that we watched Rent many years ago, so I do not remember any of those songs. But seasons of life is what we were talking about today.
Yes.
And this is something that I think is really, really important. And it's about setting these expectations and understanding, depending on what season of life that you're in, what we handle as coaching. So nutrition, training, mindset, habits, all of that is going to change based on what you're doing. And we picked 3 examples that are, pretty standard with people that we work with. And we just want to touch on those and kind of walk through how we would coach people through that, because I think it's important to have those realistic expectations of yourself when you are going through these different seasons. Because if you're in season A, and then you go to season B, that's not going to look the same, and that's okay. But I think a lot of it is accepting that it's not going to look the same and it is going to be different. And people get really, really hung up on that. And that's what we've seen with coaching.
Yeah. And this reminds me a lot of the podcast that you did with Rick on cognitive dissonance, because like you said, if we are going into different seasons of life with the same expectations, you can really beat yourself up with I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. And yeah, you can should your way. What did Rick say? Like, don't shit on me. Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. It's still like you can say that all day long, but when the situations change, you might have been able to do all that in one season and you might not be able to do any of it in another. And so, yeah, it's really important to have correct expectations and have a correct plan of action.
And it's also important to not say, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything now.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to black and white thinking, which we talked about extensively on that podcast series. I can't recommend it enough, just because this is really one of the most important things that we deal with clients. There's so many different cognitive distortions, and everybody's going to have their own that they kind of gravitate towards and what they struggle with the most. But I would say that through and through, most of our clients deal with black and white thinking in some capacity. And that's one of the strongest cognitive distortions that we see as coaches. It could be a self-selected thing, the types of people who want to work with a coach or do, I don't know exactly how it all kind of starts, but I would say that a lot of people deal with that. And what that basically looks like is, okay, well, this new season of life has hit me. If I can't do things how I used to, well, I'm going to do nothing at all.
Yeah.
And this ties back to the last podcast that we just did about pregnancy. And it's the idea of, okay, well, I can't train how I used to, right? Like you're in a situation where, you thought you were going to be training, you're going to be at the bar the whole time up until you're pregnant. I got really concerned, guys, if you didn't listen to that. Sam's like, I thought I was going to be at the bar in my 3rd trimester. I'm like, dude, what? Like, anyways, I know some people drink, but like maybe like a glass of wine, not like
shots. 3rd trimester
hanging out at a bar.
I've been doing this all wrong.
Sam's going to just rewind. I want to stay pregnant for another 9 months. I got to redo this. But your expectations had to change because your season of life changed. And of course you knew, okay, well, I'm going to change my training. But as things adapted, you didn't just go, oh, well, I feel really shitty and, this is really hard, so I'm not going to train at all. No, you said, all right, well, this is what I can do. This is what allows me to still be a functioning person and still feel good and be healthy and on all these things. So I'm going to do that. So let's focus on the first one. Yeah. Which, let's say it's something business related. You are growing your business. You have a side project that you're working on, or you're trying to work up, kind of in your company, whatever it might look like. You're going to really need to focus on maximizing your productivity, in the workforce, right? So this is going to look like, all right, I need to, work certain hours a day that I'm going to be my most productive is when I'm working. And, hey, maybe I like to train at that time. And you used to train at that time and that was your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But now you might need to train at a different time because training is not your priority.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that you don't train. That wouldn't be helpful because actually being consistent with training is going to help you with your productivity. But if you're saying, all right, my number one goal right now for this next 3 months, 6 months, year is building my business or, getting this promotion or working on this new project that I just got. All right, I need to have all the other things in the background going on, but when am I most productive? And I need to do things that are going to facilitate that productivity. So maybe you love cooking food, but that's not helping your productivity because that's taking time away. So maybe now you start ordering from a meal prep service. That doesn't mean that you're doing that forever, but it might mean that for right now, when you're focusing on that productivity, you're eliminating things. Okay, I'm going to hire a house cleaner because I don't have time to effectively clean my house right now. I'm going to order food from a meal prep company. I'm going to maybe train at a time that I don't love training, but I'm going to do that because it's going to allow me to stay at work longer and work more efficiently. And you're going to have to be okay with taking a step back from maybe some other goals that you had previously, if this really is your number one goal.
Yeah. And I think a big thing that can help with that is actually listing out all of the demands that you do have in your life. And if we already know these work things are priority A, like that goes at the top, that those are your non-negotiables. And then you do have to find where can I make concessions completely. And like you said, get somebody in to clean the house or have, husband pick up kids from daycare or whatever that may be. And then also, where can I make adjustments? Like we said, everything doesn't have to go, but maybe it's that meal prep service. Maybe it's maybe you're not somebody who loves meal prep in general, like myself. I don't like to make all my meals ahead of time. I'd rather build them as I go. But if I know I'm not going to be home for 12 hours, I might have to prep my entire meals ahead of time. And you know what? I might not love them, but I might have to eat them because it's just a season of my life where this is going to be what I have to do. But being able to actually see all those things on paper rather than have in your head, like, holy shit, I have to do all these things all at once. It can be overwhelming and you can lack any decision making. But if we can lay it all out, see it all out. And this is something that I do with my clients every once in a while, especially when demands get heavy. It's like, okay, well, what do we need to do? Where can we make changes? Let's look at it.
This would be important too with school. So say somebody's in school or they're going back to school or they are balancing now being part-time in school with working, like whatever it might be, right? So there's going to have to be some concessions where, again, number one goal is focusing and maximizing your productivity. So that doesn't mean that everything else falls to the wayside, but we are going to be changing things certainly to where you're like, all right, for me at least, right? So this is kind of somewhere where I'm kind of live more, which is, all right, I still train, I focus on that. I eat like a healthy person, I do all these things, but that's not my number one focus right now. Like, sure, I have these goals here, but my main goals are focusing on my business. And in order to do that, I have to be productive because if I don't take that into account, I'm very easily distracted. I'm very easily all over the place. So if I want to be productive, I have to do things that are very specific. So I might not like working out first thing in the morning, right? I just don't. I would rather wake up, have some coffee, work a little bit, eat, and then I'll go train, then I come back. But what I find, now that works some days for me, other days that doesn't work. If I have a lot of stuff all like lined up, it's not going to happen. And then if I tell myself, yeah, I'll just train later, it probably doesn't happen. For me, at least. For me, it doesn't happen. And I'm somebody who, if I know I got to get up and I got to do something, I can do it. Whereas some people are opposite. They're like, no, I'd rather sleep in and go right there and then just train after. So if that works for you, that's fine. That is where you have to, do this assessment on yourself and say, okay, like you said, all right, what are my main priorities right now? What do I have to get done in order to focus on this goal, which is productivity? And what else do I need to do around it? So one of the other things too, and this goes for literally every goal, but let me just say this here, is when people are really busy, what ends up happening is they kind of, I'll do it later, or I'll do this. And then we all know that kind of just doesn't happen. So pre-planning when you're going to be able to do things, like when you're going to train, like what days, that holds you accountable. Because if I just say, yeah, I'm going to train 4 times this week, that's cool. What days, right? Because if Monday comes around, I got really busy. Mondays are crazy. All right, I'll just train tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll get up. Oh, I hit snooze. All right, well, now it's late on Tuesday and I got this other thing going on. Okay, now it's Wednesday, right? And then you're like, oh shit, I could have had 1 or 2 workouts done, or at least one, and now I've gotten both off. So now the rest of my week is really, really cramped.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, if I say, this week I'm training these days, that is so useful. And especially if you're really busy, like say you're traveling or you're, if you are in school, you have like tests coming up. So it doesn't mean that has to be the same every week.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to say, okay, I'm pre-planning this. And when you pre-plan something, you kind of just write it. It doesn't require any more mental energy. So especially if you're focusing on productivity, if you're like, all right, I know when I'm going to go do this, you just do it. It's not like you're not mulling over. Should I be training? Should I do it later? Should I do it now? Like all of that mental energy is like zaps you. And that is taking away productivity from what you need to do. Instead, if you sit down and you go, okay, here's my work week. Here's the calls I have to do. Here's stuff that I have to be at. Here's where I'm traveling or whatever it might be. Here's the classes that I'm in. Okay, here's what I'm going to train. And you write it down and you do it. You don't think about it anymore. And then now you can actually focus on your work a lot better.
Yeah. And it's just like any of the other things that you're putting on your calendar that it has to get done. And that's where it comes to your expectations and your priorities. If training really is a priority to you, and people say this all the time, and sometimes it's bullshit, but when we're talking about like actually being productive and prioritizing, if it's important to you, like you do it, you just do it. And there's a difference between saying, work is the most important thing to me. I needed to stay an extra hour late. Training didn't happen today because of that. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between saying, I worked, I was exhausted, I didn't really want to go, I decided not to go, I went home instead. And you need to be able to call yourself out on that.
Yeah.
And
adjust.
Yeah, exactly.
If that happens 3 times in a row, well, guess what?
That's not working.
Don't work out at night. You got to work out in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. And but like I was saying, like just you need to treat it like anything else that's on that schedule. It's just you just do it and take out that mental back and forth of nope, just go and get it done.
And get it done. And it might not be the best workout, might not be the best whatever. And we're just using this as one example. But again, if you are somebody who's focusing on productivity mostly, which is growing your business, getting a promotion, going back to school, whatever it might be, you need to figure out how to maximize that, and then everything else falls into place. But it doesn't just fall into place by itself, because that requires a lot of mental energy. You need to plan it, get it done, and make things easier on yourself. So whether it's, finding restaurants that you can eat out at lunch every day that fit within your lifestyle and your goals, maybe you do that. Maybe that's a little bit more expensive, but if you have this great place down the street that you can go and you can kind of customize your meals and you make it, cool, go do that. That's one thing off the list. Now that could actually take more time, right? Because now you got to go there, you got to wait, got to do all this stuff. So maybe it actually is more beneficial to meal prep or to get a meal prep company. That's on you to decide in your specific situation. Maybe, like you said, house, wow, I got to clean the house. It's really not happening.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to hire a house cleaner once a month or every 2 weeks. You got a big yard, you're not taking care of it. Like there's these small things that they add up and they stress us out. And if you're traveling a lot and all this stuff is coming up, it's like, oh my gosh, when the hell am I going to cut the grass? Right? Just, you need to hire somebody to do that. Now, again, is that forever? No, if that's not in your budget, can't do it. Okay. But if your number one goal right now is to focus on building something, whether it's the business or school, productivity wise, you need to make those concessions. Now, next situation, which is really common, and this is, we work with a lot of competitors in various sports. So whether it's a physique athlete or a strength athlete or an endurance athlete, if you have some kind of show or event coming up, that's going to look very different. When I said, okay, hey, just train whenever you can, but focus on your work. No, you're doing this and your performance or your physique or whatever is number one. You have to prioritize now that competition. And it's not a matter of, oh, I'll just go down the street and get some food and, that's easier right now. No, you have to understand what is involved there and say, okay, this is what I'm focusing on mainly first, getting that all done. Clearly, you still need to do your other things in your life. You can't just say, oh, I'm doing a competition, so I'm not going to go to work now. No, that doesn't work. That's not how this works. No. But there is a difference of, okay, when is the ideal time for me to train? Within your constraints, obviously everybody has, and that's normal and accepted. But within those constraints, okay, I would rather train at this time because I feel more fueled. So a perfect example, like we just talked about, I don't really love training first thing in the morning, but I do it. And I'm at a body fat that is adequate for me to train first thing in the morning. I don't really run out of any glycogen. I don't really have any issues with stamina. Maybe it's not my favorite, but I do it and I get it done. If I was prepping, I wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's not the most advantageous time or way to train.
Mm-hmm.
But my number one goal right now isn't to have the 110% best physique I can. If I can be like 80%, I'm like, cool. And it's not that much, sweat off my back to do it. But if you're getting ready to do a competition or you need to really dial in your training for, anything, that needs to be a priority. It can't just be like, oh, I'll just go whenever kind of works in my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. Same thing with like the meal prep and nutrient timing. Whereas in situation one, if you can get in some protein like 3 times a day, great. Like that might be a win. Maybe you have more time to do that. But if you're training for a show and we need to hit those numbers, like you're going to, and we need to maximize training and we need to maximize muscle maintenance. We're going to have to dial in on those kind of things. And that means that other things might take a back seat. And something I was just thinking, and I'd love your thoughts on this. I feel like in all of these situations, the number one thing is you have to be willing to do these things. And that needs to be a big question before you take on any of these things. Are you willing to make those adjustments?
Yeah. Oftentimes people go, oh, I'll do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you actually share what that is, they maybe don't want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes it's not what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's necessary to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So for the competition example, most people, regardless of what sport or event that you are training for, most of the work is going to be done not in that actual prep period, right?
Mm-hmm.
The prep is way shorter than the off season, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get it. Some sports are different with seasons, but you guys know what I'm saying. Most of the work and most of the habits that are built up are happening beforehand. So especially with, like, let's say a physique competition, is probably the easiest one to delineate.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say, all right, I'm dedicating 6 months to this competition prep, to the diet. I'll do whatever it takes. Okay. But are you willing to do that for the off season period for the other 6 months before that 6 months? Because that's what really has to happen first before we can even get here.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding that. It's about understanding, maybe for these next few months, my productivity is going to be not the sharpest. I might be at 80%. So I'm not going to, I'm just trying to maintain where I'm at with work or my life or my business or whatever it might be. Hey, maybe when I'm, in the middle of this competition prep for this event, I'm maybe not going to move halfway across the country. Sometimes life happens.
Yeah. You might do that.
You might do that. And guess what? You figured it out. And was it super great? No, but you did it. But you understood, okay, well, this might not feel too great, but you still got everything done.
Oh, and there was just preparation that had to happen. I had to prioritize having my stuff together before I left. And
I bought a house during one of my preps, moved, got the house, which is super stressful, buying a house. That whole process blows. And then, because I'm a psycho, I have to, design everything perfectly. So not only was I buying things for months and like storing them in my tiny apartment, when we got here, I said, okay, I'm literally taking this next week to unpack and decorate and do everything. And it was all done. Now, I don't live in the Taj Mahal, so it's not like it's a huge place, but it's still, it was a lot of work. And, but that's, again, I made that concession. I said, all right, I got to train these few days. I'm going to eat pretty on point, not going to be 100% perfect, but pretty good. And then I move on. And it was all good. But it's about understanding, okay, if I'm competing in some kind of physical event, that's going to take number one priority. And then this other stuff is going to have to maintain. And the first example was, all right, this productivity needs to take number one precedence. And then everything else kind of goes, all right. So the meal timing was a great example. Like right now, again, I try to eat protein 4 times a day. Is it at the exact perfect time? Sometimes I try to be pretty consistent. Some days it's not. And that's okay, because I'm at a body fat and I have goals that coincide with that. If you're prepping, game over. Like it has to be on point, not because it's, oh my God, there's like this magical formula. It's like, no, because that's what your body needs. And it's much more important when you're lean to have a pre-workout meal and to time your caffeine and to make sure you're getting enough sleep. Right now it's like, all right, like if I have caffeine, sure, I'll have a banging workout. If I don't,
Yeah.
it's okay. I'll be a little tired. I'll get through it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was just a big difference. And it's like you said, what are you willing to do? What concessions are you willing to make in different areas of your life? And then the last situation, which I think is, just really pertinent in general, is let's just say you're hit with a really just high stress situation, big change. I don't know what it could be. It could really be anything. We're actually going to do a podcast on just how to handle the mental side of like life transitions. That'll be a cool, interesting podcast. But like for our intents and purposes, for like coaching wise, say you got let go of your job, say you got a brand new job, say you're moving across the country, say you bought a house, say you got like all these things, right? What is going to happen? Number one, you have to be like, all right, I'm going to scale back. This season of my life, I'm probably not going to make the biggest gains in my physique, probably not going to have like these outstanding days and weeks. And I might kind of feel a little meh, for a while. And understanding that is so important. So important.
I think a lot of recently, unfortunately, I've had quite a few clients either lose a loved one or have a loved one get sick, and I think they've been having to care for them or just have had that heavy weight on them. And that's one of those situations where it can be hard to make that concession, to say like, I still want to do this so bad. And it's like, but we need to objectively look at this. Do you have, like we talked about in the adversity podcast, like, do you have the bandwidth for this? Would it be more beneficial to look at this as a season, to say this is a period of time, it will end, and not, even if it doesn't end, you will adjust and we can get back to this. But in this season, do we need to adjust our goals? Are you going to feel more successful? Are you going to feel less stress on this side of your life? Are you going to feel more control on this side of your life if we make these changes to your goals? Whereas in this other high stress situation, you might have not an ounce of control. You might not have any options, nothing. But over here, we can have some wins. We can take off some stress. We can back down just even if it's just a little. And that can be like, that can help lessen the stress from this other thing, because it's not compiling up. Is compiling a word?
I think something. Yeah.
Let's just say piling up. Sorry.
Yeah, compiling is it? Now I'm wondering. All right.
Comment, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, let us know if that's a word. We're just making shit up. Who knows? At this point, I wouldn't put it past us.
Compounding. I was going to say compounding, and I was going to say piling, and I said compiling. So
it sounds like a good word to me. So I'm going to start using it. Whatever.
You guys know what I mean. It's a compound of piling.
If it's really not, I'm using it. But so, scaling back when something like this happens, that's totally fine. But also making sure that you're still holding yourself accountable in some aspects, right?
Yep.
So having these handful of these, we like to call them the non-negotiables, these little daily tasks and habits that keep you not necessarily moving forward, but like kind of keep your head above water. Because when things are really, really stressful and really, really hard, and you feel like, oh my God, I can't do anything right now. Just being able to be like, okay, my head is above water. I'm maybe not thriving right now, but I'm at least not drowning. And when you said it perfectly, and this happens with so many clients, like when there are things that are really high stress and like out of your control, it feels so chaotic. And the best thing that you can do is take control of what you can focus on. And you can 100% focus on your, these daily non-negotiables. Now, does that mean that you need to be 110% perfect, whatever you deem that, with your diet or your training or whatever? No, but it doesn't mean that you go, all right, well, I was meal prepping and I was eating, 4 times a day, and I was getting to the gym 4 times a week, and I was going for a walk. But you know what? I'm not going to do any of that anymore. I'm not. Yeah. I'm going to go eat drive-through. I'm never going to work out. I'm never going to see the sun. Like, no. Whoa, that's going to make you feel 100 times worse. So maybe you don't meal prep every meal, and maybe you don't train as frequently. But if you can say, all right, I'm going to get some kind of movement in every day. I'm going to, hit this protein goal, whatever it is for you. You have to set these goals to kind of just keep you on track. Even though they're scaled back, there's still something that you're hitting and you're feeling good about. And you go, man, I did that today and I feel really good about it. And we all have those days, even when we're not in these like high stress situations. We all have things that we kind of like to do on a daily basis. And when we don't do them, kind of feel shitty, right? And then, at the moment it might feel good. You know what? I'm not going to go for that walk. I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to have dessert. And you know what? Every once in a while, that's great. You do that for 5 days in a row, you're not feeling so hot, you know? So you have to realize that it's really easy to slip into that. So say, okay, I'm going to have these things, and maybe I don't want to go for this walk, but I'm just going to go for 10 minutes, and I'm going to get outside, I'm going to get some fresh air. And then I can come back and do this other thing that I wanted to do that maybe was going to stop me from the walk. I can still do it, but I also want to make sure that I'm on top of this.
Yeah. And the nice thing about, not the nice thing about high stress situations, but there are some high stress situations that are very acute. Like they're not going to last forever. Like your kid is sick for the week. Like that can be super stressful because you have this extra thing to focus on. And that can threaten to derail you. In those situations, we might have to make some concessions. We might have to say, okay, yeah, you were 80% on when we'd like you to be 90, but it's okay. Like you were under this situation, perhaps for getting done what you did. And expressing that to your coach could be a big thing too. Or, whoever you're working with, like, this is what's going on this week. How can I still make progress? But then there are other situations that are less short-term. And I think that you can listen to the other podcasts on adhering to adversity for more on that. But just the main thing there is like, let somebody know what's going on. Let your coach know what's going on. Because if we don't know, we can't help make those changes. And that can happen where it's just like, yeah, I've just been grinding away. This has been going on for 3 weeks, but I've just been plugging. It's like, whoa.
We could have adjusted.
We could have, exactly. We didn't need to be running your face into a wall and not knowing that you're not going to, if you're trying to get in 4 workouts a week and you are a nurse who's just been on 5 12-hour shifts, overnight shifts, for example. I actually have a client that happened to. It's like, you're not going to get in 4 lifts.
Yeah,
that's okay. We can adjust that. I don't want you trying to lift on 3 hours of sleep. It's going to be way more productive for you to sleep than to lift, but we got to know it. And so being vocal about that can really help manage those expectations.
Yeah. Communication, as always, I mean, that is the root of everything with coaching. So when you are working with somebody, you really have to be honest about these things. Like, hey, and goals shift, and that's okay. And that's where we talk about, okay, these seasons of life, we have to be aware of that and go, right, this is my season right now. And this is what I want to do. This is what I want to focus on. And if you maybe signed up with a coach, or even yourself, you're not working with anybody, you're just, hey, I set this goal for myself. And, you realize like, maybe this isn't right. I need to do this other thing. I either need to do it or I want to do it. That's okay. You just have to shift how you're thinking about it and shift those expectations and understand that, if you're trying to have a productivity goal, that maybe your physique or performance goals might not be number 1. They could be number 2, but they don't have to be number 1. And, if you're trying to say, all right, I really need to work on my relationship with myself, or my family, or my significant other, whatever it might be, that's going to take a lot of your effort. You might be going to therapy, you might be doing these other things, maybe having more conversations, whatever it might be for you. Okay, well, maybe my productivity is just kind of like maintaining. Like we're not like going crazy. We're just kind of here. So I think that it's really important to understand and to give yourself that realistic, like, look, okay, here are my expectations of myself, and not be too hard on yourself, but also don't just let yourself off the hook either, because eventually that will make you feel worse. And in the moment, it feels great, and I think that every once in a while, we all kind of need those days, or maybe even a week, whatever it might be. But if you're actually being honest with yourself, or you're being honest with the coach, those things will be built in, so you never really reach that period. The whole goal of this is so that you don't have to go, oh, I just need to take 2 weeks off of everything because I'm so burnt out. Like, no, if we can avoid that and we can just be like, you know what, this one day, go do this on a day. That is exponentially better than going off the rails for 2 weeks, one way or the other, and then trying to come back. So a lot of this comes down to expectation management. It comes down to understanding where you are. And like you said, what are you willing to do for this goal? You have to understand that. Like, I'm getting into this. This is what is expected of me, and this is what I need to be willing to do. Am I? Yes or no? And then you can move forward.
Yeah. And the last thing with the seasons too is that like these things can tend to be, and they are just like everything, really impermanent. And so being able to articulate that and be honest with yourself about that this is something that I'm doing for now. If I can just buckle down now and have those expectations for myself now, and be willing to hold appropriate expectations of yourself in those seasons. Just like you said, with being too lenient, no, you need to be able to still get things done, but also it can be really detrimental to expect yourself to do all of it all at once. Just because in one season you could do this doesn't mean in this season you're going to be able to do this. And that's why there's seasons, things change.
Exactly. And this is something that happens to a lot of clients, unfortunately. And, this has happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you too, where you look back on that period and it's kind of nostalgic. Like, oh, I used to do all these things. Why can't I do that now? Or why is this so different? And it's like, well, this was a very different period in your life.
Yeah.
Right. When I was in my undergrad, I was obviously very focused on school and extremely busy. And I still got to the gym probably every day. I used to do 2 a day. I'd get up at 6 a.m. I would go do sprints up the stadium at Florida State, which is huge. I'd go do research. I'd go to bed at 2 a.m., wake up at 6 to go do research. I'd be at school all day, like function, firing off. Oh, gonna go to the gym. Okay, cool. Now my life is very different. But I look back on that and I'm like, wow, why can't I function like that? But my life is different. Not
Jack,
just,
you don't have Jack's 3D anymore. That's why.
That really, I'm like the mind blown emoji. But seriously, y'all, that shit was crazy. That definitely got me through a lot of college. God, I don't know how I haven't had a heart attack yet based on how many stims I used.
God.
Thankfully, I've recovered. So maybe that's why I'm less productive now. But you can say, okay, almost 10 years later, what is so different about my life? A lot of stuff. So I can look back on that and be like, wow, that was a really cool period of my life. I was able to do all these things. And now I'm doing other things that I wasn't doing then, but I'm also not doing things that I used to be able to do. So you just have to not romanticize too much about certain periods and instead go, all right, that happened. If I want to get back there, what are the habits that I need to take? What are the steps I need to take to get back to that place? Or this is probably not going to happen. Yeah. So what am I going to do to fix the situation now?
Yeah. And what would you say about like the acceptance factor and all that? Because I find that there can be a really huge dissonance, like we talked about, between, what things should be versus what they are. And
should.
And but it's that's what I think trips people up so much. You have clients who are in an off season, who are building muscle, gaining weight, and every check-in, it's like feeling good, feeling strong, eating my food, training, gained a little weight. It's awesome. Then you have clients who are like, I'm in this off season, I want to build muscle, but I really hate my physique. I don't like that I don't see lines. I don't like that I don't look like I did when I was on stage. And one tends to be more successful than the other. And I think a huge factor is the acceptance factor.
Oh, yeah. If you are, that example specifically, in an off-season period and you're a physique competitor, you cannot, all caps, expect to look remotely like what you looked like on stage. I can show you some of the people with the best physiques in the world, who are very muscular, who have great muscle bellies, great insertions. They are pretty lean year round. Like, the golds, whatever he wants to look like, right? But they still don't look like what they look like on stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even those people, and that is like such a small percentage of physique athletes. And again, are you doing this to win the Olympia, or are you trying to beat your personal best and get on stage for a few years, right? Again, what is that expectation? Where are you like being realistic? And it's not a negative thing. It's just like hey, I have to be realistic and set my expectations appropriately. So if you are in that situation in an off-season period and you're missing your lines, you can miss them. Sure. You can be like, wow, I used to have abs all the time, walking around 24/7. That was cool. I don't have them anymore. All right, I'm going to move on, right? Like, that's not where I'm at right now. Now I have other things that you can focus on, not me, but anybody. All right, maybe I don't have these abs, but maybe I have energy all day and I don't have to take a nap. Or maybe my ass looks great all the time, right? When you're lean, everybody, just little FYI, when you're stage lean, a lot of people, they really don't understand what your butt looks like when you're lean. It is not, maybe you, because you always have a great bubble butt, but some of the people who have the best pictures that you would see, right? The craziest tie-in, super, super lean. You see that person in leggings or just walking around, They got a small butt.
Yeah.
Okay? I just want everybody to know that.
And
Now,
it hurts to sit.
dude, it's awful. Awful.
Yeah.
Like, it blows. Like, you look good in a very select few poses, basically in a bikini. Like that's all it looks good. You're walking around close. You're like, oh, sad. You know, like it just doesn't look as good. So a big part of the expectation is understanding, okay, hey, this is not where I'm at, but also appreciating, okay, yeah, maybe I don't have abs, but like filling out these pants.
Yeah.
I got energy all day. I feel good. I'm mentally sharp. You know, so part of it is the expectation, but part of it is also changing your perception of what you want to focus on. Because if you're only ever focusing on, again, the abs, like I'm just using that as this example. If you're always focusing on not having lines in your abs, you're going to be really fucking unhappy.
Yeah.
You're never going to be happy about anything else that happens in your life outside of getting abs again. So you need to then shift not only your expectations of yourself, but you need to shift your perception of what you're focusing on.
Yeah. And those focuses will change for the season that you're in. And so much pain, like this is something I learned and it's a no-brainer. People say all the time, like, it is what it is. It is what it is. But when you actually stop and think about what that means, now there are situations where things should not be as they are and you need to speak up. And if your coach is never getting you any results to say like, oh, it is what it is. Like, this is just my body. No, that's not what I'm saying. But based on the season that you're in, if I were to wake up today and say, you know what, I don't want to wear a mask all day. I have a ton of errands to run, but I'm just not going to wear a mask because I don't want to. Like, that's not reality. And I would be so pissed every time I had to put on a freaking mask. But if I just said like, it is what it is, I'm putting on a mask, I'm not going to get mad about something that I can't control. And it's just the state of things. Same thing with being in an off season. If I look in the mirror every day and I expect to see what I saw 6 months ago, I'm going to be devastated.
Well, right now,
every day. Oh, yeah. Well, but truly,
Okay.
though, that's the thing, though. I mean, there was a time like in my early on where I was like, you know, my body is changing and it's hard to see. But if I were to look in the mirror right now and expect to see like tie-ins or not see a ton of cellulite on my ass, I would be sitting there crying and picking myself apart because that's not what is right now. This is where I am. This is what is. I'm not going to create pain for myself by wishing things were different. Will they one day be different? Probably. And I look forward to that and I'll work towards that. But right now, I need to accept where I am and the season of life that I'm in. And that can be so, it's just like stress perception, everything. It just changing that perception can be so powerful of capitalizing on the season that you're in and recognizing that, like, if I'm building my business, if I'm focusing on the fact that I'm not getting to the gym as much rather than the fact that my business is growing, I'm going to be pissed when I could be happy. Like, it's all about that.
That is the goal that you set out, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just important, like we said, to kind of tie in that expectation and that perception and really bring them together. And this is where we see the most successful clients getting to this place. And it's not easy. And some people pick it up relatively quickly and other people don't. And that's okay. You know, everybody kind of handles things on a different timeline and that's all good. But you have to set this as the goal. Like, this is the goal. Okay, what am I trying to do? Being realistic with what that looks like. What am I willing to concede? What am I willing to do to achieve this goal? And then do it. And if it's a 3-month goal, cool. If it's going to be the next 6 months, maybe the next year, whatever it might be. But romanticizing something that was at a completely different point in your life where you might not even be able to literally go back to that unless you recreate that entire environment. It's only damaging. Like I said, you're creating harm for no reason. So we really want to avoid that, because the reason we want to avoid that is not just because we don't want you to have unnecessary psychological harm, but it's because it creates bad behaviors. And what ends up happening is when you create that pain, you then have this black and white thinking. You completely go off the rails. You completely do the opposite of what you should be doing. And now instead of taking a tiny step forward, you take 18 steps backwards. And that's what we really, really want to avoid as coaches with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I really hope this was helpful. I think those 3 examples were things that it kind of encompasses a lot of people, and it especially encompasses a lot of our clients. So if you found this useful, please subscribe, like, review, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. If you guys have any specific questions, we really want to address situational questions that we can talk through on the podcast. We'll link that below in the show notes. It's completely anonymous, so you can share as much detail as you want. and we will not know who you are. And then lastly, if you want to apply for coaching, listen to any of the other podcasts, or check out the articles that we write every week, you can go to teamlocofit.com. Everything is on there. And yeah, that's all I got. You good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.
Bye.